Hey guys, it's Chris. From mysteriously abandoned movie vehicles to technology that would have changed the world around us. Join me as I show you some incredible and forgotten vehicles. Number 9. The Batmobile. It might surprise you that the Batmobile is being mentioned, especially when we tell you that this is a forgotten vehicle. Which, let's be honest, is odd, because arguably the Batmobile is one of the most recognizable vehicles in all of history. From the first live-action Batmobile via the Batman '66 series, all the way up to the Bat Tank from the Dark Knight Trilogy and beyond, the Batmobiles are iconic. So how can they be forgotten? Simple. Because of the love for the Batmobile and Batman, of course, people get the itch to go and build their own Batmobiles. Such as this one, which is the Tim Burton Batman movie version that featured Michael Keaton as the Dark Knight. This is another of the top-tier Batmobiles, and someone clearly wanted to make it, and then they abandoned it. Believe it or not, multiple versions of this particular Batmobile have been found in woods and forests all over, and some of them are in really bad condition as a result. While we can't speak to the how or the whys as to them abandoning such a project, more than likely they didn't have the room to contain it, or they weren't able to finish it due to money issues. So since they couldn't sell it, they just threw it away. It's not our place to speak for Batman, but we feel he probably wouldn't approve. Number 8. The Bennie Railplane. One of the things that have made trains so viable over the years in terms of use and design is that they're easy to make, easy to refine, and can get the job done. But innovation is almost always being thought of for them, such as when a man named George Bennie decided to make a new kind of railway and train called the Bennie Railplane. The concept was very simple. There would be tracks and the train would go along them, but the tracks themselves would be above the ground, and the train would be powered by a propeller. Why was this considered? That would be because Bennie felt that the aerial train would be faster than the ground one, so thus they could have two kinds of trains. The one above the tracks would help with delivering passengers, while the one on the ground would be for moving materials. A true win-win scenario in his mind. Unlike many concepts, Bennie did indeed get to build and test out his train, and it did prove rather effective. However, the idea didn't catch on financially, but there was interest around the world from certain people. And thus Bennie couldn't continue with his idea. He was later forced to sell his railplane for scrap, and the idea was never truly picked up again. Number 7. The Bathtub Hot Rod. When it comes to classic styles of cars, they truly evolve with the times. And a great example of this is the novelty hot rod. The intent was to make special hot rods that defied logic, convention, and even common sense in order to wow those who saw them. Arguably the most famous and infamous of the bunch, to those who know the style, is that of the Bathtub Hot Rod. The vehicle was made by Rob Reisner in 1968, who was one of the kings of the show rods as they were known. This one was everything you'd expect with a name of Bathtub Hot Rod, featuring a twin bathtub cockpit, a toilet driver's seat, a double-down Chrysler mill, Charmin holders, and a myriad of plumbing references, see threads and fittings on exhaust tips. The car was a big hit touring the country and making car show appearances. It's true, this hot rod really was basically a set of bathtubs that were put together to be sat in, and there were a bunch of other bathroom and car parts to hold it together. It was weird, it was unique, it was strangely functional, and it was later forgotten by many who didn't know the history of the car world. Eventually, the original was found and brought back to life by a team at Galpin, who showed the restoration on their discovery show Car Kings, even bringing it back to life for a hot rod show in Japan. And now for number 6. But first, if you're new to this channel, be sure to hit the big red subscribe button and click the notification bell so you don't miss out on more. Number 6. The original Maglev Train. If you were to outline the path of evolution for trains, you'd see that with each major evolution, they became more and more advanced in regard to their energy consumption and usage, as well as how fast they went. During the time of the USSR, Project Wagon TA-05 was meant to be the next evolution in train technology, because it was the first to use magnetism to propel the trains forward, thus giving them incredible speeds. If you're familiar with this kind of train, you'll know they're called Maglev Trains, and they're in use in various parts of the world. However, this one was from 30 years before they became very mainstream. The compartment that contained the passengers looked like its own spaceship, and apparently they had the ability to go almost 400 kilometers per hour. The track was built and a test was done, but not long after this, a massive earthquake hit Armenia, and it destroyed the track and the equipment that the train used. Millions of dollars in repairs would have needed to be done to fix it, and that never happened. One has to wonder what might have happened if the tests had continued, because train travel and travel in general might have greatly advanced a lot sooner than it's gone now. Number 5. Little Red Wrecker. If you think about the classic TV shows of yesteryear, you're gonna find yourself looking at a series of cars that help define the series in one form or another. Great examples of these include the Batman 66 Batmobile, the 2 cars seen in the Munsters, the family vehicle of the Beverly Hillbillies, and more. But a more forgotten piece of automotive history was for a car that was meant to debut in a hit show, but the show got cancelled before the car was brought on. This is the story of the Little Red Wrecker. Made by George Bennie, the man who crafted the vehicles previously mentioned, he was hired to do a very unique build for the very popular Stanford & Son series. The plan was for the main character, Fred Stanford, played by legendary actor and comedian Red Fox, to win the lottery and then blow most of the money on a new tow truck for his company. And the build wasn't just unique, it had a look that definitely would have stood out from the crowd. Adding to the odd and fun nature of the Little Red Wrecker is the midship supercharged 392 CI Chrysler engine. It sits exposed in front of the towing rig, so Barris chrome-plated the engine to add to the showiness of its vehicle. That pairs nicely with the crushed blue velvet and wet look antique vinyl interior. While Barris never got to have it on the show, it remained a key piece of car history. So much so that the team at Galpin got to rebuild it and show it off to the world in grand fashion. Number 4. The AEROTRAIN. When you look at the AEROTRAIN, you'd likely think it was a fake or a redneck experiment to put a jet engine onto a train or something of that like, right? Except that this is indeed a real train from history, and it was one that almost changed everything. It was a train developed by Frenchman Jean Bertin from 1965 to 1977. But it wasn't a train powered by gas or even magnetism. Rather, it rode on an air cushion over a simple reinforced concrete track or guideway, and could travel at unprecedented speeds, without the further technical complexity and expense of the maglev track. After demonstrating it could work, Bertin and his team got the backing they needed to do more tests and make these hover trains across the United States once completed. They even set speed records of over 270 miles an hour. And at this point, you might be wondering, why aren't we riding these trains? That would be because of the French government. They were never happy with the test results for reasons that can honestly be described as greed. They felt it would be cheaper and more efficient to just improve the wheeled models of the trains they already had. Due to this, the AEROTRAIN was stuck in limbo, and Bertin died without having his grand idea being used. Had it been put into motion, we could have had non-gas using trains in the 1970s and not still be using them to this day, which meant that the effects of pollution would be much lesser in certain respects. Number 3. The AVE MIZAR. The idea of a flying car is hardly new in the world of automobiles. There are even versions of it today that can be seen and even flown to an extent. But in the 1970s, the AVE MIZAR was aiming to take the idea of a flying car to new heights. Not by strapping a rocket engine to it, but rather by having a car, in this case a Pinto, with the ability to attach an airplane wing to it. To be clear, the car would be drivable just like a regular car. But then you could head to the airport, put on the airplane wing, and then take off to your next destination without having to worry about traffic. Should it have worked efficiently every time, it likely would have been a big success. However, numerous test flights were dubbed failures because the struts that held the wing and car together weren't strong enough. In one unfortunate incident, the creators of the AVE MIZAR, Henry Smolinski and Harold Blake, both died while testing out the flying car, and after that the project was shut down. Number 2. DEVEL 60. Sleek is not a word that would often be used to define an off-road vehicle, but that's exactly what the DEVEL 60 is. It's an off-road behemoth that is not only fast, it looks like it was built to be the most aerodynamic car on the road, or on the off-road. Visually, this 6-wheeled vehicle has been noted to be built like a tank, and it's meant to be as fast as just about any car out there in its class. Featuring a 6.7-liter V8 turbo diesel making 720 horsepower and 737 pound-feet of torque, and has wheels that can change tire pressure on the fly when the terrain requires it, which was proven in drag races from similar cars from both Mercedes-Benz and Bentley to high-quality car makers, and the Devil 60 beat them both by a large margin. And should you require even more horsepower in the vehicle, the Devil 60 is able to have an option to get a 1,500 horsepower engine, further ensuring its speed and power on the road. The true irony of this piece is that it is indeed street legal, but how many you'll see going down the street? More than likely not many. Number 1. TERRA Wind Amphibious RV. An RV is a classic mode of transportation for families on road trips, but what many don't know is that there was one made to be amphibious. This is the TERRA Wind Amphibious RV. One thing that's immediately noticeable about the TERRA Wind Amphibious RV is that it maintains the shape and style that RVs are known for. Yet when it goes into the water, it does transform a bit so it can make it through the various waters you're going into. Even more surprising, it can go about 8 miles per hour in the water. But that's just the start of what this ride offers. Inside this very special RV isn't just room to relax and sleep. There's also a spacious jacuzzi, granite countertops, a washing machine, microwave oven, and a refrigerator. You're meant to live in this thing and enjoy it every step of the way. And if you're into fishing, the back end of the RV will actually lower down enough to give you room to fish. Or you can just sit on it and enjoy the view as you trudge through the water. You've never seen an RV quite like this, and because of its unique features, it's one of the more incredible and yet somehow forgotten versions of the RV ever made. Thanks for watching. What did you think of these incredible and forgotten vehicles of history? Which of these do you feel was the most unique, or maybe the most insane to think about? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on the channel.